Okay, shalom. Right, another phenomenally exciting lesson that we've got. The gematria in this lesson is absolutely brilliant, as are the concepts that this reveals. It's basically the Moshiach Armilus, who is the Jewish concept of the Anti-Messiah, the Anti-Moshiach, and the eyeball of an adder. Okay, how we get round to all these being linked is just wonderful. Transforming the serpent skin into the light of Moshiach. Now, I've just recently done a brilliant teaching, and the last teaching that I did, and it is actually called Transforming the Serpent Skin into the Light of the Meshiach. This is following on from that. Okay, it's a standalone lesson on its own, so you can keep watching if you haven't watched the previous one. Because it's just as exciting and just as wonderful. A lot more gematria in this lesson and a lot more connections to make some key concepts, but the last lesson was phenomenal. I'm going to put it in the comments, hopefully if I remember, for you to enjoy. Click on it and go have a look at that. It's all about the concept of the Torah Ouroboros or Ouroboros. I don't really know how to pronounce it because I've never actually heard anybody say it, but the concept of this snake with its tail in its mouth. Really interesting lessons that we can learn from that. However, let's go and have a look at this. Okay, so we've got, first up, we've got the concept of Armilus the Anti-Messiah. Okay, I have done lessons on this concept before, but we are going to be looking at it from a slightly different angle, a much different angle in fact, but obviously some of the concepts that we've covered in previous lessons, we can draw on them and add to them and look at them from a slightly different angle. So this came up in the last lesson that I was just talking about. I never went and did a deep dive into this number because I had too much to talk about regarding the concept of the whole process that we're in, the whole rectification process of these last 6,000 years, and us ultimately returning in Moshiach ben David back up to our elevated status in Gan Eden. However, I did notice in the last lesson that 347, which is the regular for Armilus, plus 77, which is the ordinal, and 77 is equal to Moshiach filled. So we've got a connection to Moshiach, whichever way you look, gematria-wise. And together they come to 424, which is Moshiach ben David spelled without the additional yud. Okay. Without the rectification. It's also, however, equal. This is where we've got the concept. For everything evil, there's an equal or opposite holy. So let's go and have a look at some of the equal opposite holies. So we've got, O Shepherd of Israel, hearken, Roe Yisrael ha'azino. That's taken from Psalm 80, verse 2, comes to 894. And 894, as we can see here, is 2 times we'emeth and truth. And this is one of the 13 attributes of mercy as revealed in the book of Exodus. This is the Torah of Moshiach. Okay, we'emeth. So that is one of the 13 principles, one of the 13 attributes of mercy. Okay. And together, so that's the regular. The ordinal is 147. Okay, 147 is also linked to truth. So we know a revelation of the Shepherd of Israel is absolutely linked to truth because 147 times 3 is 441, and 441 is emeth, truth. Okay, so a double link, and we know that that's also linked to Yaakov. Yaakov is synonymous with the truth. It's synonymous with a good inclination, and Yaakov needs empowering with the truth, and he gets the truth from Eliyahu Hanavi 5 times in Tanakh. Eliyahu Hanavi has a missing vav in his letter, in his name, and vav represents truth. And 5 times Yaakov as an additional letter vav. So 147 is the years of Yaakov. Okay, he lived 147 years. So we know that that's connected to Yaakov. And we also know connected to the concept of truth. Yaakov is very much connected to the concept of truth because this we'emeth, it's chesed we'emeth, kindness and truth. That's in the 13 attributes as revealed to Moshe in the book of Exodus, when he's in the cleft of the rock and the glory of Yod-Heh-Vav passes by. In the book of Micah chapter 7, he gave kindness to Abraham and gives truth to Yaakov. So the 13 attributes of mercy are expressed differently, a much, much higher level of mercy. And the equivalent to this attribute of mercy that we find in the book of Exodus is and gives truth to Yaakov. So we've got that association again with Yaakov and truth. Right, together 1041 is 3 times 447. So we can see a link between all these concepts of Moshiach, okay, back to the concept of the Armilus. Armilus is opposite truth. Armilus is fantasy fiction. These are fantasy fiction pocket versions of Meshiach that we get through the lies we've inherited within the religions to which we have been born, usually, or which we have adopted. You know, we're in a state of exile and everything is diminished, everything is in exile. Moshiach is in exile, the Torah of Moshiach is in exile, in Erev Rav exile within Judaism at this time, and this Erev Rav exile has a massive influence. It creates an Armilus through the concept of Meshiach. So within Judaism, there's an extraordinary amount of truth regarding the concept of Meshiach. There's also an extraordinary measure of falsehood that creates an anti-Messiah. It's anti-Messiah that doesn't recognise the true Meshiach, which is Yeshua. That's one, and it doesn't unify the concept of Moshiach together with Yeshua in order to reveal Moshiach ben David. So all these things are an anti-Messiah, a false Messiah. Okay, so there is some truth, as is in Christianity. False Messiah, the concept of Jesus, keeping pagan festivals, totally divested from his, Jewish roots, dressed up in idol worship. That's the same, and also the concept of Messiah within Islam. It's in exile in Ishmaelite, in the Ishmaelite clipper. There's 3 heads of the clipper. 1, Erev Rav, which dominates Judaism. 2, the Edomite clipper, which dominates Christianity. And 3, the Ishmaelite clipper that dominates Islam. So in all those religions, there's a concept of Messiah. But at this time, we're in exile, where our body dominates over our soul, where our evil inclination dominates over a good inclination, where fantasy and fiction dominates over truth. And that's the situation that we're in. We need to bring ourselves through a revelation of the truth to a situation where our truth overwhelms the fantasy fiction. And this is why you've got such powerful connections to the concept of the anti-Meshiach and the holy opposite, which is truth. This anti-Messiah has power and influence because it's our fantasy and fiction has power over our soul at this time. We need to empower our soul, our inner Yaakov, our good inclination, our inner Yisrael with the truth, to dominate over our outer Esav, our outer nations, our outer fantasy and fiction, our outer evil inclination. The concept comes up all the time. This is very interesting. Okay, so this Meshiach ben David, I've already mentioned this up here. Meshiach ben David, spelt unrectified or without the additional yod, comes to 424. The ordinal of that is 82. And if we add on to that the name David, it comes to 520, which is 4 times 130, 4 times ayin, the missing letter of Yeshua's name. Okay, so that's very interesting. And then we can spell Meshiach ben David exactly the same way up here, but when David is spelt with additional yod. Okay, so that comes to 434, 92 ordinally, and obviously David, the name David, added on, comes to 24, so that comes to 550. Okay, if we've got Mashiach, so they're the 2 ways that Meshiach ben David is spelt within the Torah. Okay, within the Tanakh. And then there's Moshiach ben Yosef, which comes to 566, and the ordinal of 116, plus the name Yosef, 156, comes to 838. So if we add them together, if we unite the concept of Meshiach ben Yosef with the concept of Meshiach ben David, we've got also up here, Emeth. This is truth, the regular and the ordinal. So obviously this truth is connected to this number here, 147, which is the number of years of Yaakov. That's why Yaakov represents truth, and that's why Yaakov represents a good inclination. That's why Yaakov represents our soul as opposed to our body. Okay. But if we take the regular of that as well, the ordinal, so 441 plus 37 comes to 477. And if we add all these up together, the unification of Moshiach ben David plus Yosef, we get to 4 times 477, exactly the same as the regular and ordinal for truth. When I said the letter Vav is linked to truth, the letter Vav is the 6th letter in the alphabet, and 6 times 6, the full inclusion of the letter Vav within itself obviously comes to 36. 6 times 6 is 36, and that's how we know the letter Vav is connected to the concept of truth. The unity of the two Moshiachs revealed the truth. Okay. However, we've got this also. If we add an additional yud to the name Yosef, which this within the Tanakh for the actual name of Yosef, it is never found with the additional yud. However, there's many instances where the word Yosef obviously means in addition to, and it's used as a verb within the Tanakh. In many places, the verb in addition to or as well as is used, and this spelling is used within the Tanakh many times. And if you look, there's some verses where if you were to do a word search of this, it comes up exactly in the same, within, like sometimes right next to and just like 1 or 2 words away from the rectified version of David. Okay, so they use this together. So I did the numbers for this because I thought to myself, it is definitely in the Tanakh, this spelling of Yosef, but it's used as a verb, but it's just the proximity to the rectified David that I found very interesting. So I thought I'm going to do the numbers for it and see what they are. So Moshiach ben Yosef, spelt with 2 yods, and we know that Yosef is to get a double portion. Comes to 576, 126 ordinal, and then the spelling out of Yosef would come to 166. This is an incredible number. It's really the intermediary between the infinite and the finite, which is the Moshiach. It's the way that the finite, the infinite, makes himself known to the finite is through this intermediary called Moshiach. Okay, and that letter there, I've done it in previous teachings, I can't go through it now, but this is connected to that concept of intermediary. Add them up together, 868, which is 2 times 434, Moshiach ben David rectified. This is why the numbers are so significant. It's all glorious. So now if we add that to what we've already got up here, add them all up together, we get to 2,776, and again we've got this massive powerful connection, 8 times 347. So we know again this massively powerful unification between the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef, Moshiach ben David, when they're spelt ordinarily, and when they've both got this rectified yud, additional yud within the names. If we add them up together, they are 8 times the force of Armilus. Okay, so they are going to take out this concept. When we unify the concept of Meshiach together, we are going to take out these we're going to take out when we're empowered with the truth, and then obviously unite the concepts of Moshiach ben David and Moshiach ben Yosef together, we've got the power to overcome this great adversary that prevents us from seeing a true revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. It's because we can't see Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh through fantasy and fiction that this concept of Armilus creates within us. We can only see Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh through the truth. Okay? And that's why in both in the Torah of Moshe, the 13 attributes as revealed to Moshe in the book of Exodus, one of the revelations of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh includes a revelation of Wehemeth, the truth, one of the 13 attributes of mercy, and that's why also in the book of Moshiach, Micah, which is the Torah of Moshiach ben Yosef, I go about this concept all the time, Micah 7, verse 18, I think, to 20, they're the 13 attributes of mercy at the level of Keter, the Torah of Moshiach ben Yosef, and eventually those two revelations of the name Yod He Vav He through the 13 attributes of mercy need to be united as one. And when they're united as one, we have got a revelation of Meshiach ben David. Okay? The inner and outer dimension of the name Yod He Vav He. I talk about that a lot. But as we can see, so the Meshiach reveals the name Yod He Vav He, and the forces of concealment, of which Armilus is a very great force of concealment, seeks to conceal the truth and seeks to dominate with fantasy and fiction, and that concealment obscures the name Yod He Vav He. Okay. I hope I've made myself clear with that one. Right, also we've got Yosef is still alive, 254 regular, 92 ordinally, and as we can see, 92 up here is the ordinal of Meshiach ben David, spelt with the additional Yod. It comes to 346 together. If we had one Kalel, and the Kalel stands for Alufo Shel Olam, Master of the Universe, which is Yod He Vav He. He is hidden at this time in this world, in all the darkness and evil that we experience in this physical reality. So even in something adverse, he is hidden, and we can always have one Kalel representing the Aleph as from Alufo Shel Olam, Master of the Universe. So if we had the Aleph, we also get to 347. Yosef is still alive is very much a powerful revelation that opposes the concept of Armilus, and this is very important also because Yosef being still alive was very much hidden even to his own father, who is Yaakov, that represents the truth. It's revealing the truth regarding Yosef still being alive so it's the revelation of Yosef still being alive that invigorated his father Yaakov, that represented the truth. So it's the truth of Yosef being alive that empowers our good inclination to ultimately defeat these forces of evil. Okay? But Hashem hid himself on purpose. He hid the fact that Yosef was still alive from his father. Okay? And from his brothers. So this was hidden. It's something that we have to work to reveal. And we reveal it from the concealment itself. So it's very important that in this instance, Yosef being alive, there is a Kalel added because the Kalel represents Yod He Vav He, the Master of the Universe, being hidden in this world at this time. It's for us to reveal him. 254 is 2 times 127, which is 2 times Yeshua filled this way. So that's each letter of the name Yeshua filled as it sounds, Yod, Shin, Vav, Ayin. And that's when the Vav is filled with a Yod. We've also got this. So we've got, when I say with the additional Yod, when Yosef has the additional Yod, if we've got Meshiach ben David with the additional Yod, it comes to 92. Meshiach ben Yosef with the additional Yod comes to 126. And Meshiach ben Ephraim, which is another appellation for Meshiach ben Yosef, it comes to 129. Add them together, it comes to 347. Again, we see a unity between the concept of the Meshiachim. These are three appellations of the Moshiach: Meshiach ben David, Meshiach ben Yosef, and Meshiach ben Ephraim. When we unite those together, we can defeat this force of evil, this force of concealment. This is a revelation, this is a concealment. Okay, and we are trying to get back to, like I said in the last lesson, Meshiach, we all fall in Adam, we all rise in Meshiach, back to the status in Gan Eden from which we originally fell, and even higher, ultimately higher. Interestingly, we've got Yaakov, which represents the truth, the unrectified version of Yaakov when he hasn't got the additional Vav, that represents the truth. And then when we've got Yaakov spelt with the additional Vav, okay, if we add these two together, they come to, just wait a minute. Right, I've just had to change that around because I knew that I'd put it wrong as soon as I saw it in front of me. So you've got Yaakov and Yaakov, which represents the truth. Add them together, it comes to 370. Okay, 370 is exactly the same as Chaya, 23, plus 347, which is all these concepts. Okay, so we've got Chaya, which is the rectified Eve. It's also the soul level of Moshiach ben David when he returns. Okay, and when he returns, he's going to unify, the Torah of Moshe with the Torah of Moshiach ben Yosef together as one. And he's coming at this level, Chaya, which means the mother of all living. It's all absolutely wonderful stuff, but we can see this whole concept of Chaya. It was Chaya who perceived, it's Chaya who needs rectifying. She's in a fallen state along with Adam. Okay, the need to unite with the concept of Moshiach, and specifically Moshiach ben David, in order to get back up into the Garden of Eden. I talked about Chaya a lot in the last lesson. I really suggest that you go and have a look at it. It's absolutely phenomenal. You'll know why I've included it here with the concept of Yaakov as well. But basically, in a process, aren't we? They saw the tree. They was tempted with the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the fruit of the knowledge of good and fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The fall of Adam occurred, the fall of Eve occurred. In Exile, she's called Chava, not Chaya, and we're in a process of rectification so that we will get back to Gan Eden. And I pointed out in last lesson that the word Echad, oneness, and we're getting back to a place where we can perceive the oneness of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh and nothing else beside him, is an acronym for Adam, Chaya and David. So we can see why Chaya needs to unite with this concept of Meshiach, because ultimately Moshiach ben David is a rectified Adam, is the last Adam. So not only is Moshiach ben David coming back at the level of Chaya, but he is also the last Adam. Adam fell, and we all fell in the first Adam. Adam will rise as Moshiach, and we will all rise in the resurrection of the dead in Moshiach. So she's very much obviously connected to the concept of Moshiach. And like I say, the word Echad, we are being prepared to receive a revelation of the oneness of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, the absolute sovereignty of his name. Okay, so that's why Chaya is so significant and important. She's part of the whole rectification process. And like I say, so important that Meshiach ben David is coming back at that level of soul when he returns. Okay, we've also got this, which is very interesting. Yosef, which is 156, the concept of Meshiach ben Yosef. If we add 191 to that, we also get 347. So we need a revelation of Meshiach ben Yosef in order to defeat Armilus. So what does this 191 represent then? And I've gone through this many times. Menachem, Shiloh, Hanina and Yinon are the four names within Torah, within the Talmud, Sanhedrin 98, which add up to ordinally. So the ordinal of Menachem, the ordinal of Shiloh, the ordinal of Hanina, and the ordinal of Yinon add up to 191. So what else does that mean then? We've gone over this loads. Yimach Shemo was Ikro. So this is the derogatory way Yeshua is called within Rabbinic Judaism. Yimach Shemo was Ikro, and those initial letters spell Yeshu, and Yeshua is known as Yeshu with his name erased, the letter Ayin missing from his name. Okay, that comes to 643 regular, 121 ordinally. Add them together, they come to 764, which is 4 times 191. Basically, the Meshiach is the one who had his name erased. All these letters, the initial letters of Menachem, Shiloh, Hanina and Yinon spell Moshiach. Okay? And I've gone over this concept so many times in my teachings. But basically, like I say, the one who had his name erased is the Moshiach. Okay, so if we add the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef in exile, with his name erased as Yeshu suffering with us, to Yosef, we get also the force of 347, which is a wholly opposite this force up here. Okay, and united with all these other holy forces. Okay, to defeat this great enemy, we need the truth regarding Meshiach in order to gain a revelation of the oneness of Yod He Vav He. Okay, so it's very important. And then we've got this here, 643 is the same as Yosef made himself known. Okay, so we're in a state where Yosef is not really revealed to his brothers, specifically really to his brothers Yehuda at this time. We need to transform that to a place where he has been made known, and obviously is made known from the concealment itself. Okay, the whole process of concealing the concept of Meshiach ben Yosef that Yod He Vav He himself has done, that concealment becomes the revelation. This is where we transform the serpent skin, the false Messiah, into the light of Moshiach, and it's just exactly at the place of concealment. There you have the revelation. Turn it inside out and stop looking at it from our own narrow little snaky perspectives and start looking at it from a much higher perspective, a godly perspective, through the eyes of Yod He Vav, through the lens of the name Yod He Vav He, instead of through the lens of a serpent snake, through the lens of an eye of a serpent, like a very narrow, restricted perspective. We can take, when we see it from a higher perspective, the concealment itself becomes a revelation. And the concealment, instead of biting us like a snake, heals us, just like the serpent was lifted up in the wilderness. So the very thing that bit them became the very thing that healed them. It's exactly the same principle, where the concealment itself ultimately becomes a revelation. Okay? And we've got this as well. And the sweet singer of Israel. And that is very much connected to, Meshiach ben Yosef, Meshiach ben David. He's the sweet singer of Israel. So once we reveal Yosef, through the concealment, we have a revelation of Meshiach ben David. This number here, as we can see, the 370, we've already come across it here. Yaakov, which represents the truth, and also Chaya plus the concept of Meshiach, the united concept of Meshiach. Okay, and we know that the 1,000 represents the concept of Meshiach, because we've got 543 here. If we add that to 566, it comes to 1,000. So Meshiach ben David rectified plus Meshiach ben Yosef comes to 1,000. So this is 1,000 Meshiach ben David plus Meshiach ben Yosef, united with the concept of truth, Yaakov, empowering our good inclination. That truth empowering our good inclination reveals the sweet singer of Israel, who is Moshiach ben David. Okay? And then we've got this one here. I shall lift up the cup of salvations, and I shall call out in the name of the Lord. So this is where we want to get to, don't we? We want to get to the ultimate place of redemption, where we are able to call out in the name of the Lord. This here, we can see here, is 2 times 928, very significant number in itself, plus 8 times 232, and 232 is the phrase Yehi or, let there be light. Okay, here however we've got the connection to all these concepts that have just been going on. We've got 2,101, which is 11 times 191. So we can see, I shall lift up the cup of salvations, and I shall call out in the name of the Lord, is very much connected to this revelation of Meshiach ben Yosef. Okay? Right, now let's go and have a look at this a little bit more. I'm going to go through this very, very quickly because I want to get to the bit where it's about talking about the eyeball of the adder. I like the juicy stuff, but this is incredible revelation. We just cannot pass by. Right, we've got this incredible concept. I shall lift up the cup of salvation. It comes to 1,180. Okay, regular. 136 ordinarily. Together they come to 1,316. Just to point out that 136 is David's throne, which according to Vilna Gaon is the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef. Okay, this is a significant number, but this is, I'm just going to fire through here and then I'm going to go back and have a look at this 316 because it's just phenomenal. It's highly messianic. So we've got this here, the concept of olive leaf, which is the olive leaf that's in the mouth of the dove, and she leaves the ark, and it's all symbols of peace, and it's all symbols of for redemption. It comes to 522 regular, 72 ordinally. Together they come to 590, which is obviously 2 times that comes to 1,180. 590 is 5 times 118. This is 10 times 118. And 118 is Yeshua filled this way. Filled as each letter of his name sounds. So Yod, Shin, Vav, Ayin. Okay, so we've got profound connections there. Gone across that a lot. Also, not only that, but Yeshua filled a slightly different way. Okay, where the Vav is filled, here it's Vav, Aleph, Vav, and here it's just the Vav, Vav. There's 3 ways of filling Vav. That also comes to 522, come across that number all the time. 117 ordinary, 639 together. Revenge, as in revenge for the spilt blood of the servants, also comes to 590. Okay, which also give massive connections there up to the concept of the olive leaf. Not just that though, and then obviously massive connections up there to I shall lift up the cup of salvations. But revenge for the spilt blood of the servants, i.e., even including Meshiach ben Yosef, but all the spilt blood of the servants of Yod Heh Vav Heh. The Jewish people have had the blood spill. Christians have had the blood spill. Muslims have had the blood spill. There's been true servants who, in this exile, because of our restricted consciousness and because of our false Messiah, concept of the false Messiah, we've brought nothing but separation instead of unity, and that has cost endless and countless people their lives for real. For real, we have got a very bloody history regarding this false Messiah that we've all been worshipping. Okay, there's nothing more than a serpent that bites. We've got to transform that serpent skin into the light of Meshiach, the concealment itself into the light of Meshiach. And this is a perfect example. It comes to 658, and 658 times 2 is 1,316. We see it's linked up here, look. This is also equivalent to Moshiach ben David rectified. That's supposed to be Moshiach ben, let me just change it. Okay, Moshiach ben David plus Moshiach ben Yosef plus Yeshu. The whole concept of the suffering servant whose blood was spilled, but for a great and glorious good. There's got to be revenge for that. And hopefully, this is what I always say, pray that it be in a good way. Pray this revenge for the spilt blood of the servants happens in a good way, because we are all guilty in one way or another. Okay, for the spilling of that blood. So 658 times 2 is 100. What is this number here? 1,316. We're going to look at that very briefly because it's an extremely significant number. So this is connected, the whole concept of the rectified luminaries. The luminaries is spelt defective, and this is connected to the whole concept of the eyeball of the adder, by the way, which we're hopefully going to get to if I can speak quick enough and flick through these quick enough. So 658 linked up to this, plus 73 ordinally comes to 731. That's the rectified spelling. In the Torah, it's missing these 2 vavs. What do the vavs represent? The truth. What do the luminaries represent? The Moshiachs, the sun and the moon. Moshiach ben Yosef, Moshiach ben David. It's the truth that is missing, and it's our work during these 6,000 years of concealment to reveal that truth. And the Vav represents the 6,000 years. It's the 6 days of creation. It's the 6,000 years of human history that we have got to endure before we get to the 7th day, the 7th millennium, where we can enter into our Shabbat rest. We've got a job to do to reveal that truth regarding the luminaries, the Moshiach, which is what we're trying to do now. It comes to 731. 731, I point this out all the time, is the Moshe, 345 plus Yeshua, 386. Okay. This is that number that I said we'd have a look at, because obviously major concepts are connected. This is a major concept, all this verse. So this is Yod Vav Nun He. This is Yonah spelt out, which is a sign of Moshiach. He says the only sign that I'll give a wicked and adulterous generation is a sign of Yonah. So this is Yonah filled out to the second filling. Okay, 734 plus 194 comes to 928, which is 4 times 232. 4 times Yehi or let there be light. Okay, so we've always got this constant connection to this concept of Yehi or let there be light, this 232, because the light definitely does not come into this world. We're not giving it to us on a plate. The light is revealed through our hard work and toil, okay, with this physical reality in order to reveal that light. Okay. And let's have a look. And then we've got this concept as well. Then the ransomed of the Lord will return and come to Zion with glad song, Isaiah 35:10. That also comes to 928, which is 4 times Yehi or. The ransom means sometimes we've got to go through a process of what's called pidyon nefesh, redemption of the soul. This is the whole concept of Moshiach ben Yosef. He was sold. He was sold into this Edomite slavery. He was sold just like Joseph was sold into Egyptian slavery. He needs ransoming back. So this whole concept of pidyon nefesh is very much related to this word here. And then the ransomed. And the Vilna Gaon pointed out that word means that, you sometimes have to buy a soul back from a place where it doesn't belong. Yeshua does not belong in Rome. He does not belong in Edomite exile. He's a Hebrew and he belongs home in Jerusalem, in Zion. And he deserves to come home with glad song. He's been suffering for all of us. The soul of Meshiach has been suffering for all of us. So that's connected up to this verse. When this occurs and we see that we will finally lift up the cup of salvations and all that represents to us. Redemption. So we've got Yaakov spelled out here. Yod, Ayin, Kof, Vav, and Beit. That's Yaakov, 770. That comes to regularly. 158. Comes to ordinarily together. They come to 928. 770 is a significant number within the Chabad movement, because that's the Chabad headquarters. But it's also 7 times 110, and that's Yeshua HaMashiach ordinarily. Okay. And then this is where it gets wonderful to me. And prostrated themselves. This is the first word in Torah with this number, I think, that's got a value of 1,180, which is a big value for just one word. Where tish tachawen, and this is, and prostrated themselves. It's got an ordinal of 109, which is very significant, because that is pretty sure it's a gematria for mother of all living. Im Chol Chai, which is very much related to Chaya, who is called the mother of all living, and also very much related to, therefore, Moshiach ben David, whose soul comes back at that level of Chaya. So together these come to 1,289, and then I've also put that 1,180, which is this bit here, and related to all these bits, comes to 236 times 5. So we've got this incredible, where do we get this and prostrated themselves? There's 2 verses that are extremely significant. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the middle of the field, and behold, my sheaf arose, and also stood up, and behold, your sheaves encircled it, and prostrated themselves to my sheaf. So this word here, where tishtacha weino, comes to here. So it's very much connected. Joseph is suffering in exile in order to gather in his sheaves once he has completed this task. Once he has completed this task, all the other sheaves that have been gathering in during exile will bow down to Joseph's sheaf. He will have accomplished the hardest tasks of all. His sheaf will be greater than all the other sheaves. They will bow down to it. And so we're in this. This is really synonymous with gathering the holy lost sparks trapped within exile, isn't it? You know, it's all glorious to go through that concept many times. But this is actually the first appearance of the word. And we're going to have a look at this verse because it's absolutely extraordinary. The gematria is absolutely extraordinary. And the maidservants and their children drew near and prostrated themselves. That's from Genesis 33:6. This is when Yaakov leaves Laban's house, because he's finally given birth to Joseph. So he leaves Laban's house because he knows now he's empowered to go and face his brother Esau. He's aware in his soul that ultimately Joseph will overpower Esau, i.e. the truth about Moshiach ben Yosef will strengthen our good inclination in order to overpower Esau, the fantasy and fiction that's created through the evil inclination that is connected to the whole concept of Armilus, the false Messiah. All these things, it's incredible. But these numbers here, they're so significant. We're going to have a look in a minute. Right. Also, we've got, where did I get this from? And prostrated themselves. Okay. I will also point out here, right, there was a promise made from Yaakov to Esav. Esav says, come to me to Mount Seir. And he says, I'll come to you. But, we'll just trail behind because we're slow. There's lots of us and there's little ones and stuff like that. We'll be slow. He never went to Mount Seir. He went to Sukkoth and he dwelled there because he realised that he wasn't yet rectified enough to truly go and be with Esav within Esav's own territory, which is Mount Seir. But the rabbis say that this is a prophecy that's waiting to be fulfilled. At some point he will go to Mount Seir and meet with Esav, because the mouth of a tzaddik, when he speaks something, it will ultimately be fulfilled, for good or for bad. Just like he said to Lavan, his father-in-law, whoever you find the gods with, whoever's got the gods, may they die. And it was his own wife Rachel who had them. And what did she do in childbirth to Benjamin? She died. When a tzaddik speaks, the words are fulfilled. When Yaakov said, I will come and meet you, Esau, in Mount Seir, he will go, but he hasn't gone yet because he hadn't had the truth. Yaakov needs empowering with the truth about what? The concept of Moshiach ben Yosef. That's his truth. That's the truth that empowers Yaakov. That's the truth that empowers our good inclination to defeat Esau, to subdue him. We've got to have peace between body and soul. We've got to transform Esau into shalom. And that shalom between body and soul is the vessel through which we will receive that oneness of the name Yotevafeh. So we've got this here then, 1289, very much connected up here to and prostrated themselves. So all highly messianic, to him who made great luminaries or great lights, or Rim Gadalim, Ki le'alam chasdo, is for his kindness is eternal. Okay, so that comes to 1289. It's got a regular of 1033, an ordinal of 256. Let's have a look. And here we've got Yeshua fully squared. So each letter in the name Yeshua squared. This is one of the ways in which we can work out gematria. So that's the Yud squared, 10 squared. That is 300 squared for the Shin. The Vav is 6 squared, 6th letter of the alphabet. And the Ayin is 70, so 70 times 70. Add them up together, it's 92 times 1033, 92 being Moshiach ben David rectified. So we can see that Yeshua is very much connected to this wonderful this verse here, To him who made great luminaries, for his kindness is eternal. We can see how that then is linked up to that is linked to Joseph, okay, and that is linked to a future unity also between Yaakov and Esau, and that unity that unity where the truth, Yaakov is empowered with the truth and is able to subdue Esau from a place of chaos to a place of shalom as a result of that truth. Okay, because the truth reveals the utter and absolute perfection and glory of Yod He Vav He. That's what ultimately brings our body peace, the nations to peace, and not the nations and our body knowing that we have got an incredible work to do. You know, we have got an incredible work to do. We are part of a glorious plan that is to fulfill the desire and will of Yod He Vav He, to give him pleasure, you know, because he desires to give to us a revelation of his goodness more than we desire to receive. But we cannot receive what he desires to give unless our Esau, which represents chaos and disorder, is subdued to the holy side, and in doing so, it's transformed from evil into shalom, darkness into light. And that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to take the snakeskin and you know, turn it inside out to reveal the light of Meshiach within. Let's go and have a look at this very quickly though. Oh, just wait a minute, let me go back. Right, I said we'd have a look at this number here. I shall lift, oops, I've done it again. Right, this one, I shall lift up the cup of salvations. Very, very important number. We're just going to very quickly go through it, however. Let's see if I can get... And he called to Moses, and the Lord spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying, okay, so this Wayikra is in a very diminished state within the Torah. It's written like this, where the Aleph is a little Aleph, representing Moshe in exile, representing the Moshiach in exile. We know that this verse is about the Moshiach because the ordinal, the regular and the ordinal add together to 1776, which is 2 times 888, and 888 is Hamoshiach, spelled out as each letter sounds. So He, Mem, Shin, Yod, Chet. Right? It's also 15 times 97. I'm presuming this is this bit here. No, just wait a minute. Is that right? Yes, it looks about right. 15 times 97, which is Yah times Esav filled. So we've got again that concept where we've got to take Esav, our evil inclination, our tendency towards fantasy and fiction, our outer nations, our body, and transform that into a revelation of the Moshiach. Okay? And there's 35 letters in it which come to Yonah. Let's go and have a look at this 1316. Okay, so Vayikra comes to a regular of 317, will eventually become Vayikra with an Aleph Gadol. So Aleph has got a value of 1. It's also got a value of 1,000, what's called the Mispar Gadol of the Aleph. So when we have, instead of it being spelt with a 1 for the first letter of the Aleph, it's spelt with its big numbering, which is 1,000, which is really the concept of Moshiach, like Moshiach ben Yosef, Moshiach ben David, added together come to 1,000. Also, Moshe is called Aleph Hagadol, the big Aleph. Okay, so when Vayikra is spelt with the big Aleph, and we know this word here represents Moshe. We are told by the sages that this word represents Moshe, and Moshe was so embarrassed that he wanted to humble himself when it said, and God called to Moshe. He was embarrassed that God had called to him, so he diminished the Aleph in order to show humility. It was an act of humility. Okay, but it won't always be in a diminished state. It will be restored to represent, because Moshe ultimately incarnates again. He incarnated again as Yeshua, Moshiach ben Yosef, and the soul of Moshiach, which is the soul of Moshe, will incarnate again as Moshiach ben David. So 1000 is Moshiach ben David, 334, plus Moshiach ben Yosef, 566, and Moshe is Aleph HaGadol, the big Aleph. So that will eventually come to 1316, because we take the one off for the Aleph and add back 1000, and it comes to 1316. And I've put there, look, 1000 plus Yeshu, the whole concept of the Moshiach ben Yosef suffering in exile with diminished, with the name removed, just as here we've got the Aleph in a diminished state. Moshiach ben Yosef is in exile suffering with is in a very diminished state, with the entire letter removed from his name. Okay, and then we've got that there, Moshiach ben David, Moshiach ben Yosef plus Yeshu is 1316. I shall lift up the cup of salvation, we've already gone over that. Revenge, we've already gone over that on the previous thing. This is interesting though. This is Yeshu spelt out, the second fill-in. So that comes to 1090 regular, which is very much related to the concept of the mother of all living, Chaya, Aim, Chol, Chai comes to 109, and then 226, ordinarily add them together, come to 1316. So we know that this whole concept of elevating Moshiach up from his diminished state is very much connected also to elevating the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef in exile up to his own elevated state also, and that's we shall lift up the cup of salvations, Yeshuoth. Okay, it's very much related to the full name of Yeshua. Okay. What else have we got? And then we've got this. However, as surely as I live, and as the glory of the Lord fills the earth, this is where we're trying to get to, aren't we? It's got a gematria of 1054 plus 262, and that also comes to 1316. Okay, so I just thought I'd go and cover that concept of Vayikra and everything that is connected to regarding Meshiach and a revelation of the final redemption. Oh dear. Let's just check that out. Okay, so we're going to have a look very quickly at this one. And the maidservants and their children drew near and prostrated, because these are phenomenal gematria. Let's have a look. We've got this here, and behold, 7 ears of grain, thin and beaten by the east wind, were growing up after them. This is from Genesis 41:6. This is obviously Pharaoh's dream, and Joseph interpreting it. So we can see there's a connection between that whole episode where Yaakov and all his family is bowing down to Esav, and then heads off to Sukkoth, like I've said, and that meeting's yet to come. We've also got this 271 related to this concept, so there is a connection there. However, this is the real one that I want to look at. So I'm just trying to point out there's a very significant connection here between what's going on here and Joseph in exile, okay, Egyptian exile. We've also got this concept, 1,000 silver pieces. This was what was paid by Avimelech to Abraham after he'd kidnapped Sarah, and then later found out, because he'd been cursed and was suffering, that she was Abraham's wife. Okay, so he paid her Elef Chesef. So this is like a redemption fee, if you like. It's very much connected to the concept of redemption. And we've got 271 for that. So this is connected again. The redeemed of Zion. 773 is Chochmah, wisdom, which is the realm of Abraham. Together they come to 344. 344 is 8 times 43, which is Esav. Ordinal for Esav. Moshiach needs redeeming from Esav. Joseph was sold into Egyptian slavery. He needed redeeming from there. It was the entire children of Israel that redeemed his bones ultimately from them. Joseph needs redeeming from Edomite slavery into which he was sold, So this is the whole concept, and this just highlights it here. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph, is my father still alive? So this is the point of revelation, isn't it? between Joseph and his brothers, 802 regular, 271 ordinally. So we see that connection to all these concepts. We can see this is highly significant, this point of revelation. Okay, how do we attain that revelation? And then all these concepts, you know. And then what have we got here? Don't quite know why I've included that actually. All right, yeah, of course I do. You shall remember what Amalek did to you on the way. So this is the doubt that is always confronted when it comes to the revelation of Meshiach ben Yosef, because he's in such a diminished state in exile. Then Amalek can come in and take hold, and it's a very powerful force that we have to defeat. And as we can see here, it's got a regular of 1,800, 234 ordinal, and that comes to 2,034, which is 6 times 339, and that links us back to this verse here, which has got an ordinal of 339. So obviously all these revelations that must occur don't occur easily. There's a lot of battles to do. Amalek is a big force of evil that we have to face and confront, and when he manifests, he looks like a lot like a Nazi. Okay, and he gets dressed up as well. So you know, he's not just a Nazi at this time. He can even put on clothes of a religious Jew. So you have to be very, very careful. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. So that comes to 813, very much connected up to this. 4 times 813. So this light that we are trying to transform from the serpent skin into the light of Meshiach is again very much connected to the concept of Meshiach ben Yosef. Okay, I've gone over this many, many times. Okay. I've gone over the fact that Wayomer Elohim comes to 575, which is, Wayomer Elohim Ye'i Or comes to 575, which is evil inclination. That we've got to subdue. So the light doesn't come into this world without us having a work to do. What have we got to do? We've got to transform the power of our evil inclination, which creates a lot of fantasy and fiction, and specifically creates a false Messiah. We've got to transform that concealment into revelation. And then we've also got, I can't see what my thing is, Yehi Or, why he or, let there be light and there was light, comes to 470. Okay, so this 470 is Amalek. Okay, it's Amalek filled out, and it's also Yaakov. So it's Yaakov, the unrectified spelling of Yaakov, plus the rectified spelling of Yaakov, plus the ordinal of both of those, which come to 100. Add them all together, they come to 470. Okay, so truth, which is represented by Yaakov and our good inclination, will overpower those forces of darkness, our outer nations, our outer evil inclination, the evil angel of death, Satan. It's all synonymous. Esav, our body, physical reality, fantasy and fiction, and obviously Amalek, doubt. We need to overcome both those forces of evil. And then we've got this here, and these are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the children of Israel. And this is talking about a concept. It's highly Kabbalistic, actually. It's what's called the breaking of the vessels. You know, Esav had very weak vessels that couldn't contain the light, so they shattered. It's very chaotic, very powerful light though, but very fragile vessels, and that shattered. And that somehow this whole 6,000 years is retrieving those shattered vessels, if you like, and rectifying them, so they ultimately will become part of the vessels through which we receive the light of the name Yod He Vav He. It's quite a complex, Kabbalistic concept. I'm not going to go over it now, but let's just go and have a look at some of the gematria. Okay, our king reigned over the children of Israel. So if we take this bit here, Okay, it comes to 813. So as we can see, Melech Livnei Yisrael, which is the place where we're ultimately wanting to get to, aren't we? But before that, we've got this, and these are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before. We want to get to the place where the king Moshiach is reigning. But first of all, this doesn't come. This is not handed to us on a plate, is it? We've got to transform that precedes us. Like I've said, we're in the Edomite exile now, so we've got to transform that from the darkness that it is, the experience, this physical experience of actually being in this exile. It's as if we're getting constantly bitten by the serpent, and we are. We've got to transform that concealment of this exile into a revelation, and it will be wonderful in the end. Melech Yisrael, actually, the king of Israel, comes to 631. Add another 10 onto that. In the ordinal, not add another 10. I'm just dreaming now, trying to get through this as quick as I can. So Melech Yisrael comes to 631. I'm speaking by memory now. It's got an ordinal of 100, which is also the ordinal of Yaakov unrectified and Yaakov rectified. Okay, but add them both together, they come to 100 as well. So Melech Yisrael comes to 631 plus 100, which is 731. Okay, 731 is Yeshua plus Moshe together, and it's also the concept of the luminaries and also other things. We'll probably come across it at some time because it comes up all the time, so to just bear that in mind. Melech Yisrael, which is where we wanted to head to, aren't we? Revelation of Meshiach ben David, the ultimate king of Israel. That really, the king of Israel on earth is allowing us to see the utter and absolute sovereignty of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Okay, through the king of Israel being established on earth, through Moshiach ben David finally coming and being revealed on earth, the absolute and total sovereignty, the oneness of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh will be revealed through that. So a king reigned over Israel 813. This is the wine preserved in the grapes. So this is very much, what can we say? It's talking about something so glorious. Let me just get the actual quote from Sanhedrin. Okay, so this is taken from Sanhedrin 99. The Gemara asks, what reward is indicated in the phrase, no eye has seen it? Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi says, this is wine preserved in its grapes from the 6 days of creation. No person has drunk that wine, and therefore no one can appreciate its quality. Resh Lachish says, this is Eden, which no eye has ever seen. And if you say, where did Adam, the first man, live? If not in Eden, the answer is that he lived in the garden. Unless you say the garden is Eden and they are indistinguishable, the verse says a river emerged from Eden to irrigate the garden. That's Genesis 2:10, indicating that they are two distinct places. Sanhedrin 99. Okay, so let's go back. Hopefully we'll go back to where we were soon. Right, so that's that concept there then. This is the wine preserved in the grapes. This is the ultimate reward, isn't it? No eye has seen it, but we know it's somehow connected to the Garden of Eden, which we're trying to get back to, aren't we? We fell in Adam. We will all rise in Moshiach. So it's all connected. And we'll see these two are absolutely equivalent as well. A king reigned over the children of Israel, 987, if we had them both up together. The gematria for that and this, even though this is in Aramaic, because it's taken from the Talmud, 813 regular plus 174 ordinary, exactly the same, 987. Our ultimate reward will be Melech Yisrael, the king of Israel. Okay. That is our ultimate reward, and that is what no eye has yet seen. We can't even imagine the glory that will be experienced. And then again, we've got another connection. We have a connection between Melech Yisrael. Melech Yisrael, the 731, is Yeshua plus Moshe, 345 plus S386, and then here are spelling out, look, where the He is filled with a Yud and the Vav is filled with a Yud, add them both together, 455 plus Yeshua 532 comes to 987. The unity, this is Moshe, the body of the bird. This is Yeshua, Meshiach ben Yosef, the left wing of the bird. When we unite the concept of Moshiach suffering exile together with the concept of Meshiach ben Yosef suffering exile together as one, we will ultimately reveal the king over the children of Israel, and we will ultimately enter into that reward that no eye has seen. What else have we got that's 813? Very interesting. And the copper snake lifted up in the wilderness. That bit the children of Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, in the wilderness. That Moshe took and made a copper snake, put it on a staff. And Yeshua says, just as Moshe lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so too the Son of Man must be lifted up. All connected together with all these major concepts. Okay, it's all glorious, it's all perfection. Hatachath in place of 813. So we've got this word tachath, beno, in place of his son. So it's used there. This is used a lot. It's a very, very, very revealing word when it comes to a revelation of Meshiach ben Yosef. So tachath, the ram was instead of Yitzchak, and the sages in Yalkut Shimoni say that ram was actually Meshiach ben Yosef, who we know as Yeshua. Yosef said to his brothers, so that comes to 813, as well as Hanachushtan, comes to 813. Yosef said to his brothers, am I in place of God? Okay, so that word hatachath, in place of God, reference to the first coming of Yeshua as the Moshiach when still concealed from the eyes of Yisrael. That's from Genesis 50:19, and we've got this here. But Yosef said to them, don't be afraid, for am I instead of God? Okay, so it comes to 345, which is, the ordinal comes to 345, which is Moshe, that's Moshe, and also Shiloh. Okay, it's got some great gematria. Let's go and have a look, because it links us on to this eyeball of the adder. Right, we've gone through that, haven't we? I just had to add that on. So, but Yosef said to them, don't be afraid, for am I instead of God? 2,127 plus 345 comes to 2,472. Very, very significant number again, which is 4 times 618, 8 times 309, 2 times 1,236. And this also, we will get to the eyeball of the adder when we get up to this number. Let's go and have a look. Then the Lord will speak to Moshe face to face. This is what we're wanting to attain, aren't we? A face-to-face relationship with Yod He Vav He. Comes to 1,236. Exactly the same. This whole thing is 2 times that. Okay, so the whole going down of Yosef into Egypt was for an ultimate salvation. Okay. We've got this here connected to the concept of Kether, crown. We can see it's 1005. It's got a regular and an ordinal. An ordinal that equals Yeshua. The ordinal of Yeshua is 53. The ordinal of Yaakov, rectified, including the addition of Vav, is also 53. Okay, so some interesting numbers and gematria with the concept of crown, Keter, okay, which is at the level of Meshiach ben Yosef. The soul level of Meshiach ben Yosef is here. Okay, so we can see again a connection to Moshe and a connection to Meshiach ben Yosef. Right, also here we've got astonished at you. Right, there's 3 times when this phrase Shomamu Olecha is within the Tanakh. That comes to 516 plus 102, which is Emunah. And so Meshiach, just as Yosef was in the prison 2 extra years because he had a lack of faith when he said the 2 words, remember me and take me out, remember me to Pharaoh and take me out, so he was suffered for an extra 2 years. Moshiach ben Yosef is in this exile with us, and it will be a period of 2,000 years, synonymous with these 2 years that Yosef was in the pit for a lack of faith. We are here to attain complete faith in the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, complete faith in the coming of the Moshiach, not our Armilus version of Meshiach, but the truth about Meshiach. So we have to have complete faith in the truth. We can't just have faith in the Meshiach. We've got to know what we have faith in. We've got to have faith in the Meshiach of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, not our fantasy fiction versions of that Meshiach that we're hoping to come. These are what's in our mind. We have got to see what the Meshiach is revealed in the mind of God, which is the Torah. Okay, and they're not the same. So we've got to have faith in the Moshiach and then faith in the resurrection of the dead. From the first Adam falling to and experience this death, this descent into this incredible exile, these 6,000 years of exile, all the way back up to our elevated status in Garden and Eden, which is life. Okay, we're resurrected from the dead, resurrected from these depths into which we have descended. Okay, and so that's the resurrection of the dead. Again, it's about Amunah. It's about faith in the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. It's an aspect of our faith in the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. We have to have faith in the resurrection of the dead. But again, not our fantasy fiction versions of resurrection from the dead. The awesome, glorious truth in the resurrection of the dead. All creation will be resurrected. And Shomamu, this is the word that Armilus used when he was describing Moshe in a state of desolation prior to him being revealed as Moshiach. And that word there comes to 386. That's the exact word Armilus used in his commentary on Be'at Hanan, where Moshe's pleading to enter the Holy Land and not be left in exile. But it was the will of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh that the Meshiach descended, because the Meshiach's soul is not complete without those that are a part of him, including those that are trapped in Erev Rav, trapped as part of the Erev Rav, and those that are trapped in this current exile. So Moshiach ben Yosef also pleaded. He pleaded till he sweat blood. He pleaded and begged that this cup be taken away, and then he finally said, "Except it be your will." And that, according to Ramchal, is one of the signs of the Meshiach. You know, these false Meshiachs like Shabbatai Tzvi, who willingly descended into Islam, you know, he was willing to descend. The Meshiach was never willing. They cried and pleaded not to descend. Okay, Moshe pleaded not to go into Erev Rav exile, but to go in and enter into the Holy Land of Eretz Israel. And so too Yeshua, he pleaded that this cup be taken away. It said, "But except if it's your will, Father." And he drank that cup, and he's suffering with us in this exile now. So before, that's very much linked to Moshe and obviously linked to Yeshua, because it's the soul of Meshiach. He incarnated as Moshe at one level and incarnated at the highest level possible, the level of Keter. In Moshiach ben Yosef, the soul of Meshiach will incarnate. The soul of the Meshiach of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh will incarnate again. It will be called Meshiach ben David. I will thank you, O Lord, for you were wrath. That's from Isaiah 12:1. That's also 618. Really, we will thank Hashem that He's put us through this rectification process. When we see that no eye has seen, when we are rewarded for this suffering, this rectification, then we will thank Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Because the things as they appear in exile when we are suffering will not look the same when we are redeemed. You know, we will realise that this suffering was for a great and glorious good. So we will actually thank Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh for this, what looks like anger down from our perspective. We will thank him because it's not anger, it's all good, it's all glorious. We just have to look through the eyes, through the lens of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, rather than the eyeball of an adder or the serpent's eyeball. Right, and also 123 is the ordinal of Kate's Shem Lechoshek. He sets an end to darkness. He sets an end to this exile. And those two added together come to 741, which is Moshiach ben Ephraim. That's the regular of Moshiach ben Ephraim. Right, he who makes peace. Who makes peace? Let's just go through this quickly. So, who makes peace and who creates evil comes to 751 plus 485. Add the regular of both those up, who makes peace and who creates evil, and it comes to 1236. And this is again this concept of transforming the evil into shalom and the darkness into light. Okay, that's taken from Isaiah 45:7, I think it is. So incredible teachings within that particular verse. It's so much about this what's happening to us in exile. It's the will of Yod-Heh-Vav to put us through this. It is for a glorious and ultimate good. Okay. All right. Yosef filled 309. So we can see that's related up here. 8 times 309, this whole verse. So we've got a connection there. Yosef made himself known. So the ordinal of Yosef made himself known is 103. So we've got a connection there, because that would be 24, which is David. David rectified. 24 times 103 would come to 2,472. So you've got the concept of Yosef making himself known. And then also that reveals David, 24 rectified, which we want in an ultimate revelation of Meshiach ben David, aren't we? And then we've got the one king. This is taken from, I think it's Isaiah 23:15. Okay, the concept of the one king. And it's written in Talmud that this Melech Echad refers to Moshiach. And we know that word Echad stands for Adam, Chaya and David. So with the first Adam, the last Adam, and the last Adam will come back, David, Moshiach ben David, at the soul level of Chaya, the mother of all living. So all wonderful connections. What else have we got? We've got the concept of Moshiach ben David. He is the luminary that is the sun, the HaMe'or Gadol Hayom, and that comes to an ordinal of 103. Those are the 3 words to describe the sun in Genesis 40:23. So again, I got a connection there. Finally, we get to the eyeball. An infant shall play over the hole of an old snake, and over the eyeball of an adder a weaned child shall stretch forth his hand. Isaiah 11:8 comes to 2,922, which is 6 times 487. Let's have a look at the gematria. So we could see, let's just check, so we can see, I said here, but Yosef said to them, don't be afraid, for I said of God. This 2,127 is 3 times 709, and I put C over, so let's see over. So we've got this word, Me'oroth, which is connected to the word for luminaries, which are the Meshiach. The Meshiachim comes to 647 regular, 62 ordinary. Together they add together and come to 709. So we can see that that's related to the verse that we've just been looking at. And then also this concept, behold, we were binding sheaves. So this is the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. In his vision, his sheaf arose and all the other sheaves bowed down to it. So we've got 463 regular, 180 ordinary, comes to 647. So this is mysteriously connected to this eyeball of an adder. Okay, what else have we got? Yisrael, to Yisrael, Lech Yisrael, comes to 571 plus 76 ordinary is 647. So we've got this this connection. Well, that means to Yisrael or for Yisrael, and it comes to 647. So a nice link up there. And build it up as in days of yore. So this is talking about the fallen tabernacle of David that will be built up. On that day I will rise up the fallen tabernacle of David, and I will close up their breaches, and I will raise up its ruins and build it up as in the days of yore. So, and build it up as in the days of yore comes to 709. Okay, this is the place where we want to get to. It's a glorious place. And then we've got this. You know, the throne of David and the tabernacle of David is the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef suffering in exile with us. So we've got Yeshu here, and the first spelling out of Yeshu, as it sounds, comes to 393. This also is equivalent to binding sheaves. Me'al mim, alu mim, comes to 393. I don't know where. I think that might be the. I think it might be the regular and the ordinal, but I definitely know binding sheaves is somehow related to 393, which is Yeshua, okay, which is related to that sheaf that finally, let's take that back, that will arise and all the other sheaves will bow down to. That comes to 709, which we can see is related to all these concepts. When we reveal from this concealment, this concealment itself, this strange concealment will be part of the revelation, the glorious revelation. And then we've got this, at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh was dreaming. So this is the point where Joseph is redeemed from his prison cell of exile, isn't it? The initial letters we skip over, Pesach, if we skip over and Pharaoh, or pass over Pharaoh, it spells Meshiach, so Mem, Shin, Yud, Chet, Meshiach. We know Meshiach is suffering in exile with us. Joseph was in Egyptian exile. We are in Edomite exile. He will be suffering for 2,000 years. We're now in 1988 as of Pesach, the most likely calculation as of Pesach 2021 this year. Okay. That's 2. If we add up the regular and the ordinal, it comes to 1,417. If we add a kalel, you know, to represent the hiddenness of Yod He Vav He, the way that Yod He Vav He conceals himself, and is very much concealed in the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef, it comes to 1,418. Okay, which is 2 times this. All the pinks are related, they're all connected. We've also got I dwelt among the tents of Kedar. So this is King David. I am for peace. You know, this is taken from Psalm 120. He's dwelt among the tents of Kedar. This represents is a tribe of Ishmael. So not only is he suffering in Edomite exile, but also Ishmaelite exile. And the Ramchal said that the 70 nations are split into 35 from Esav, Edomite origin, and 35 from Ishmaelite origin. So this exile that we are actually in includes both Edom, Esav, and the Ishmaelite exile. And the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef, or even just the concept of Moshiach, is also exiled into these horrific mindsets that have caused nothing but death and destruction. This anti-Moshiach, this false Moshiach, that is just fueled by fantasy and fiction, because we are in exile. Yod He Vav He willed it this way. We've got to transform all these forces of evil and darkness into light and shalom. So 1,418, which is 2 times 709, we see connection there. Is my father still alive? It comes to 116, which is exactly the same as Meshiach ben Yosef ordinally, plus 62 comes to 178. So we can see the connection between King David in exile, if you like, among the Ishmaelites, and then obviously Yosef's primary concern was to find out if his father Yaakov was still alive. Okay. So is my beloved among the daughters. This is taken from Shir HaShirim, and it's talking about the rose among the thorns. You know, so we can see a connection. That's us in exile, isn't it? That's our soul in exile in our body, and Israel in exile among the nations. Okay, so we can see again a reference to exile, 178. 178 is 2 times 89, and 89 is 2 times Yetzer Hara, the ordinal of Yetzer Hara. We experience in exile in order to subdue our evil inclinations. So we've talked about that a lot. And then finally, this is where we want to get to, don't we? We've got death swallowed up eternally. Okay, it comes to The eternally bit is Lenetzach, and that comes to 178. So we can see the connection with that. I've put it here, Lenetzach, eternally 178. However, look at the number that it adds up to, 731. And this is going to connect us back to this eyeball. That's 17 times 43. So the good inclination, Tov, which represents a good inclination, times by 43, which is Gadol, great, and also 43, the ordinal for Esau, which is our evil inclination. Okay, so what have I got now? So ordinally it comes to 128. This is death swallowed up eternally. 731 plus 128 ordinally comes to 859. Let's have a look at this though, the 731. I go through this all the time. Moshiach and also Melech Israel, as I've just pointed out. Melech Israel, the regular and the ordinal, come to 731, which we want the king of Israel to be established, Melech David. 731, it won't be established until we unite the concept of Moses with Moshe, with Yeshua. Okay, that comes to 731. Then we'll start to see death swallowed up. This whole experience of descent swallowed up, and we'll be back in Gan Eden, clung to the tree of life instead of this perspective of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Hame'oroth rectified, the lumen is rectified, 658, and 73 also come to 734. And you'll see up here, this word, Hame'oroth, is very similar to the eyeball. Okay, Me'orath. So Me'orath is very much connected. It's like an eyeball or a luminary of the adder, where we've got to take the experience of looking at this world through the eyeball of an adder, through serpent eyes. We've got to experience what we've experienced, looking from our lowly perspective, what it looks like, and we've got to rectify that perspective to look at it from a much higher perspective through the lens of the name Yod-Heh-Vav, and then and the truth. The Vav represents the truth. So, and then when we do that, we're able to see and perceive there's only Yod-Heh-Vav and nothing else. And we are no longer in this place of death, which is like, death is a form of spiritual descent. We are suffering this exile in order to accomplish a work. Once we've accomplished the work by revealing the truth regards Meshiach, and through that truth we reveal the truth about the name Yod-Heh-Vav, and we're all the way back up to the Garden of Eden, and we're right there at the end. We are right there about to. There's nothing that we can do to stop it. It's definitely happening whichever way you look in this world at the time. We are all going to have to open our eyes and start looking through the name Yod-Heh-Vav from a higher perspective to understand this experience that we've been suffering, trapped within the serpent, looking through the eyeballs of the serpent at this horrendous situation of suffering that's been before us. But we've got to transform that whole experience into revelation, that concealment into revelation. Okay, and with that I will say shalom.